Joining me on the line, he's got a new show that's premiering tonight on Travel Channel. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Don Wildman. Hey, Don, what are you doing?
Nice to meet you. Good to be with you. Hosting a television show.
I know. You've been a part of a lot of these shows on Travel, haven't you?
I have been with Travel Channel since 2011, and much of that was with Mysteries at the Museum, which we made 24 seasons of that show. So
24?
It was quite a thing. And so in that regard, I've been doing history, basically, for the last 20 years of my life. And so this new show is called Buried Worlds, and it's about paranormal history. It's about we sort of do an odyssey around the world in the before times when you could still do that. We shot from September until January, investigating, I think the best way to say it is like headline history, big events from history that have some sort of paranormal resonance that is sort of tied to paranormal sources and so forth. And thus you can find people in those places that will take you into experiences that shed light for them on that world. I'm a skeptic. I've never seen a ghost in my life, so I'm not the natural host for this sort of thing. And when they came to me to do this, I said, well, I'll do it, but I'll do the context. And if I can get convinced that this is real, then maybe the audience can have that same kind of experience. And that's what we do. We go to these places from Bulgaria to Ireland to Germany to Honduras. There's 8 shows altogether. One of them is a 2-hour special. And each one of those goes to some place in the world that we may never be able to go to again. Who knows?
Well, that's what I was interested in, and what I kind of like to talk with, people that are doing paranormal shows. Is it something you actually believe, or is it, oh, they asked me to do it, so I'm doing it type thing,
No. There was a certain amount of cynicism because we had started the show as kind of a straight history show. I'd done a show called Cities of the Underworld years ago.
Yeah.
And that's why this is called Buried Worlds, because it was going to harken back to that same thing. But in the course of it, the channel became a paranormal channel. So, it was a job, and I said, well, this is interesting. Let's see what can be done with this. Well, like everything in life, once you start to scratch the surface, you find out, wow, there's a lot here. There's an amazing story. And it becomes, on one level, simply a different lens through which to look at history, which I love. And so I was interested in that. But then it became a matter of, this is something I've never done before. I've never met people who immerse themselves in this world.
Yeah.
What are they like, and what are they doing? And in a way, it was like being on getting a chance to go on one of those ghost shows and find out what the heck happens in those places. And I had experiences, certainly vicariously through these people, but also myself, that were pretty spooky, undeniably spooky and strange, because, of course, we're, in the middle of Bulgaria looking for vampires. What do you expect? It's going to be creepy. But also different kinds of, higher-minded things that were like, oh, that's interesting.
Buried Worlds with Don Wildman premieres tonight on Travel Channel. I am looking at the episode list here, and one's called Temple of Doom, Nazi supernatural weapons, Curse of the Druid. You brought up the vampire. Was there any one of these episodes that they said, okay, this is what we're going to do? We're going to go look for a devil in a swamp? Was there any of these episodes that you went, okay, come on?
That one specifically is so interesting. We went out, we went to New Orleans to do a sort of zombie segment that we missed in Haiti because we got chased off the island from Hurricane Dorian. So we missed the chance to do the thing that we wanted to do there. And so we were going to go find somebody in New Orleans because they have some booths there. And we ended up also doing a whole nother bunch of segments on the swamps. And so the story that's interesting there is that Jean Lafitte was an old pirate, hundreds of years ago. And Jean Lafitte, raided these ships and then took that treasure and buried it all over in different places all around the bayou and in the swamps. And the legend goes that there is something called a fitoulet. It's a French word that basically means this blue orb of gas, it looks like, that comes up out of the bayous. And indeed, that's what people usually roll their eyes and say it's swamp gas. Well, what they are referring to is a legend that Jean Lafitte would take one of the young sailors from his ship and say, you're going to guard this treasure. We'll be back and pick you up later. Unbeknownst to the kid, he'd get killed. He would have his throat slit or something. And they would bury the body with the treasure. Superstition being that spirit would then declare that treasure his own and would scare anybody else off. Well, that's what the orbs through the swamp are supposed to be. So we go off, the point of my story, we go off to tell this unbelievable story, ghost and goblin story, with a ghost expert on. And me and the swamp guy and I are talking about the story on the boat at night, and she's taking pictures. So it was, an entertaining experience. We got a lot of history told and all that sort of thing. But the next day, we got a call from this woman, the ghost expert.
Oh, no.
And she'd been burst shooting, burst shots of the darkness. And I saw her out of the corner of my eye, sort of, why was she doing this? It's dark. What's she going to see? And she comes to me the next day and shows me that in the middle of one of those burst shots, like the 20 pictures, there's 2 or 3 that have a blue light rising up where she was shooting. And I was like, well, that's weird. That's really interesting, because I wouldn't have seen that. And she says, that's the point. You don't see these things with your naked eye, but we can see these things because of new technology and stuff. And I was like, that's fascinating. So who knows?
Was there any of these little adventures that you went on that you were slightly uncomfortable on, that it's like, maybe this isn't a great idea, guys?
Oh, well, the first episode actually is about vampires in Bulgaria. And we had been shooting for a bunch of weeks at that point, and I was wiped out. And we'd flown all the way to Sofia, Bulgaria, and taken GPS coordinates and driven 2.5 hours, maybe more, I can't remember, just the crew and I, looking to meet up with this vampire hunting team, which is a hell of a day of work.
What'd you do today? Hunt vampires,
so we're talking among ourselves, like, are we gonna drive a stake in someone's heart tonight? What's the deal? And we get there, and these guys were believers, and they said that the surrounding villages were complaining about killed livestock and so forth in the woods, and it sounded like kind of alien abduction stuff. And they were investigating the fact that this whole village that had been abandoned above all those villages was a legendary spot for a vampire, that there had been some sort of force over the decades of that sort of thing. And so let's go find him. And so one of those guys has a dagger on his thigh and looks like a special force, Bulgarian special forces. And the other 2 guys are a medium and a spiritualist. And we marched through this village in the middle of the night, looking at all these demonology symbols on all the buildings, and it was just creepy. And finally we end up doing a ritual. The shooting was 10 hours at least in the darkness.
Yeah.
And we end up doing this ritual in the basement, which was on camera. It's amazing.
Don Wildman, he's got a new show coming out tonight, Buried Worlds. This is something I kind of ask of a lot of paranormal people, so it always sounds worse than it actually is, but the easiest way I can ask is, how real is the show? Like, are we extra added stuff into this, or is it like, okay, this is the ritual, this is what it looks like?
Yeah, I will tell you, of course, it's produced in a way that's,
entertaining.
Appeal to that audience. But the inclusion, me as host, is a whole different thing, because I can't pretend. I'm not, it would be silly at this point in my life for me to declare that I'm suddenly a paranormal expert simply because I got a television show on TV.
Yeah.
That was just, there's no way I can fake it. So the way that this, I hope, appeals to people like you is that there's a foot in both camps. It's not fair, because you don't do it, I don't know like you, but I don't do it in my life.
Yeah.
So it's not really fair for me to judge people who really do pursue this stuff. Who the hell do I know? What do I know?
Yeah.
They might know something I don't. And so, like all kinds of realms like that, who am I to judge? And so to step into that world is to do it with open eyes and an open mind, and say, show me. I'm not going to come in here just declaring that you don't know what you're doing here. I'm the one who doesn't know what he's doing. So why is this important to you? And off we go. And so I will tell you, more times than not, I was off camera having really smart and interesting conversations with these people who were on camera talking to ghosts, or having communications with their cat toys in the middle of the forest, and all sorts of things that were, indicators of this stuff. One particular one, I'll tell you, the most convincing experience I had. We were in a cemetery in California, doing the story of the St. Francis Dam disaster, and that was the Mahones thing where the dam broke, and it was back in the 20s, and hundreds of people died. So on the edges of that flood are many cemeteries that contain the burials of whole families and people that's just wiped out. Terrible tragedy. So we were in one of those cemeteries, and this guy who I liked a lot, who was a really nice fellow, had brought a whole handful of mag lights, little tiny mag lights, who were maybe those 6-inch flashlights.
Yeah. And
you turn the light on and off, and that's what operates the thing. So he turned them all off. I did it as well, and just barely off, so that they were dark. And we sat them all on the tops of the gravestones and started our interview. And while we're talking about something, one of those lights goes on, I'm saying. And he says, hello, how are you? He talks to this person like it's somebody who's just walked into the room. And thank you for joining us. If you'd like for us to engage with you, let us know. And in certain cases, it's not consistently throughout, certainly looks that way on television, but it took a while to get this. These lights are going on and off. And he's explaining to me that that's the energy of that spirit who's connecting that they're playing. They can, they're connecting that spirit, that energy. And that's why it goes on. Damned if the guy doesn't have basically a conversation, again, over more time than shows on television. But it really happened. And I was like, that's amazing. That's not a trick. There was no remote control in his pocket. That thing really is doing something. And on camera, I go over there and say, no, really, look at this camera. Look at this flashlight. It's just a flashlight. And it's going on and off for no reason.
Oh, that's always the weirdest. Don Wildman, he's got a new show coming out tonight, Buried Worlds. I know you got to get rolling, Don. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck with the show, and we're looking forward to it, okay?
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.